welcome back to Jaja Draws. That we're doing is the Ladies Maid. And because it was such a fancy character, I knew immediately that I really wanted to match it up with a betta fish. Betta fish? Betta fish? I don't know. I probably should have looked that up. I've always pronounced it betta fish, even though it's spelled with 2 T's. But who knows? I heard once that you should never make fun of someone for mispronouncing something, because what it means is that they learned it by reading. And, you know, people who learn words by reading mean that they're expanding their vocabulary, and why would you mock that? So, like, you know, sometimes I just take a stab at pronouncing things and we see what happens. This video is actually coming fairly late after my last one. And the reason for that is that life is frequently very hectic in my house. I've mentioned before that I do have a job and I am a single mother. With quarantine happening, things are also stressful, as they are for everyone. So I definitely count my blessings in terms of how sort of secure my life is right now, even if it's not the most fun or stress-free. So that's important to me. But the other thing that's going on is that one of the ways that I handle stress, and I think one of the ways that a lot of people who are creatives handle stress, is that we throw ourselves into the work that we do. I don't want to speak for everybody. Obviously, different people handle things different ways, but a lot of us are handling our stress by having projects that we're hyper focused on and just really dedicating ourselves to that. And generally the projects that get the most of our attention are going to be the ones that we find the most distracting and the most engaging, just the ones that can really soothe us. If you've never heard of spoon theory is something that was created to describe how people with chronic illness have to deal with their energy reserves. Basically, if everything in your life costs spoons to accomplish, like taking a shower costs a spoon, and walking to the store costs a spoon, and, you know, making dinner costs like 5 spoons, especially if you have picky eaters in the house. So spoon theory was created, and it was basically to be like, you know, your average person probably wakes up with like 100 spoons a day. So when you have 100 spoons, a shower, which only takes 1 spoon, doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like, you can accomplish that. It's only going to cost 1 of your spoons. But when you have a chronic illness and you have like long-term pain or long-term disability, you lack that. You just don't have that many spoons. You wake up every day with fewer spoons than everybody else. And the severity of your illness depends on how many spoons you have, but also how well you're doing. So, like, somebody with a really, really terrible chronic illness might wake up with 10 spoons every day, and that's what they've got. And they have to, feed themselves, and they have to, maybe, let's say they have an errand that they have to run that day to go pick up their medication. Okay? So, and that's all their spoons. That takes all of their spoons to get them done. And so they don't shower. And it's not because they're like inherently dirty or anything like that. It's just that this task that most of us take for granted because we have an abundance of spoons on a daily basis, is one more spoon than they had that day. And if, like, sometimes you have to borrow from a future day's spoons in order to get something done, if it's critical and it has to happen all in one fell swoop. And if that's the case, you can end up with, like, no spoons the next day. And those are the days that they just have to stay in bed all day because they really can't handle anything. And I find spoon theory to be very useful when discussing energy levels for people who don't have chronic illnesses as well. Some of us are lucky enough to be mostly healthy. But some of us have mental illness, which is a form of chronic illness. And some of us, despite not having an illness of any kind, we can go through times of stress and anxiety that reduce our level of spoons on any given basis. It's like when you're sick, if you've got the flu, you might have fewer spoons than you normally do. You can accomplish less because your body's sick and you're putting energy into trying to combat that illness. So anyway, I feel like the reality right now with quarantine and with COVID and with people's stress level, and we're all stressed about different things. Some of us are stressed that we might get sick. Some of us are stressed that our loved ones are going to get ill. Some of us are stressed because we can't work right now, and not being able to work is causing us financial distress. Some of us are stressed because we are working right now, but we're working remotely. And then on top of that, our kids are home because they're not in school. Like, there's a lot of different reasons that people are stressed right now. But the point is, while some people's stresses are clearly like more life-threatening than other people's stresses, it's all stress and it's all anxiety. And stress and anxiety cut into the number of spoons you have. Or if you don't want to think of it as having less spoons, you think of it as you are expending spoons, a huge number of spoons, to deal with that stress and anxiety. And so one of the things that's true about art, at least in my experience, and I also think in my experience with other creative people, although I certainly am not trying to speak for everybody, but one of the things that I think is true about art is that it is a little bit of a spoon taker and also a spoon provider. Art is, for me, and I think for most creatives, because we wouldn't do it otherwise, it's good for our souls, like, or, our hearts, our feelings, our energy level, whatever. I don't care what mythology of the human condition you ascribe to. But it's good for us. We are better when we are creating. We are better when we are putting things out into the world. And that's wonderful and amazing and like really critical for our well-being. And it's beautiful for society as well. So I think art is important. I think it's important for the culture as a whole. And I think it's important for the artists who are creating, and that's why we do it. It feeds something in us that we need to survive. But it gives spoons in that regard. It gives us energy and good feeling, but it also takes from us. We pour a lot of ourselves into the work that we do. I'm going to be real. I didn't pour that much of myself into the Ladies Maid. Like, I like her and she's cute, and I'm enjoying this process. But particularly the more personal pieces, but even the pieces like the Ladies Maid, like, now that I've said that, I'm kind of mad at myself because there's a lot of me in this. It's not gut-wrenching to have to produce it, but I did this, and it means something to me. It means something when you create something. It doesn't have to be the most profound piece of art ever. So anyway, forget what I said about it not being that much, but yeah, I'm probably gonna cut this part out. So anyway, my point is, we pour so much of ourselves into our art that it does take a lot out of us, and you don't always get all of that back. A lot of times you do. Like, a lot of times you get a bunch of energy back, or you get a bunch of good feeling or pleasure, and that's wonderful. But there are plenty of times when you can pour a lot into an art piece, and then if it doesn't turn out the way that you want, it ends up hurting. Like, it's become work. I mean, it was always work, but I guess it's kind of like competing as an athlete. Like, if you're an athlete and you go and you compete and you win, there is a surge of good feeling and satisfaction, and there's spoons. There's just a lot of spoons you get from winning, or being successful, because sometimes you're not competing. Sometimes you're just trying to hit a goal. Like, maybe you're going and running a marathon, like some big, like the Boston Marathon, and that's not really like you maybe some people expect to cross the finish line first, but a lot of people who run the Boston Marathon, the big goal is to complete it, and completing the marathon brings this sense of satisfaction and just amazement. And then you get a lot back. You've put a lot into it. You've put a lot of hours of training. You put a lot of effort on that day, but you get a ton back because you accomplished your goal. And when you don't accomplish your goal, let's say you didn't make it. Let's say, you stuttered out on mile 17. Maybe you still get something from that. Like, you tried, and that's always, like, I don't know. There are people who are down on trying and not succeeding, but I think trying has its own merit. So back to our marathon analogy. I feel like you can get something when you don't complete it, that you can absolutely still have a worthwhile experience. You learn, what other training you need in order to be able to ultimately complete your goal. I gotta grab my swatch booklet. So I'm going with reds, because I just think the red betta fish are so pretty. And I will put up a picture of the one that I'm using for reference. It's gorgeous. Oh, it's so pretty, you guys. Okay. So you can get something out of that marathon even if it didn't pan out the way you had planned. But you're not gonna get, that is our second, you're not gonna get that same rush of just pure, it's like someone dumping spoons into your system. So it's similar to art. Good Lord, I'm rambling, aren't I? Sorry. It's just, I don't know. I'm having a day. I'm having a day, y'all. So it's not the same, and you don't get that pure joy and that pure influx of energy. And when you're not getting that pure influx of energy back at the end, it can be very difficult to maintain your drive to produce art if you're producing things that you're not incredibly satisfied with at the end of the day. And that's really rough on people. So I think quarantine has been, coming back around to the actual topic at hand, finally, Jessica. I think quarantine has been really rough on people because we are finding that we just don't have the spoons to keep creating all of this content. We don't have the spoons to keep creating the art that we love because it takes so much out of us before we get anything back. It's like an investment, and we don't have the original number of spoons to invest. So I think we're producing less, and I think so I obviously watch a ton of art YouTubers on YouTube. Art YouTubers on YouTube. Like, where else would you watch the art YouTubers, Jessica? I don't know. So I watch a lot of them, and I feel like I can feel it coming across. Some of them are posting less. Some are posting on time, but their hearts, it's not that their hearts don't seem in it, but it feels like they're having a harder time. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying a judgmental thing here. I think it's just so difficult right now. So anyway, it took me a long time to get back to this because I was busy doing some other stuff. Some of which I was busy doing because I have other stuff that I need to get done. And oh Lord, do I always have stuff that needs to get done. So much. But some of it, it took me a long time to get back to because it was just not, whatever it wasn't feeding me right now. It wasn't, the investment felt like too much for the potential return. So I chose to put it off. And that's where we are right now. thank you for joining me, and I hope you like my Ladies Maid. Bye!